Welcome to Manifest, hosted by international evangelist, teacher, and author Perry Stone. Enjoy unique insight into prophetic and practical truth. It's time to feast on fresh manna, so get ready to be blessed and encouraged. And now, here is your host and teacher, Perry Stone.
There are many places over the past 15 years on the Manifest telecast that we have taped in, and as you know, there's 52 programs a year. Multiply that 15 years of being on television worldwide. And we love to come to Israel, to places that you've not seen. Now, we have taped at a place called the Tel Dan Gate. One of the oldest gates in the entire world that's intact is right in this location. It goes back to Abraham's day. But we're at Tel Dan, the city of Dan, and this is where the high places were built. And if you know the Bible, you know that Dan was one of the 12 sons of Jacob, one of the 12 tribes, and they caused Israel to sin by building an idol. And this is that ancient city. Now, I want to stand here today because of where we're located. We're located in what's called the Bashan, or the area of the Golan Heights. Now, the reason this area is significant is because of something that's going to happen in this area in the very near future. And it involves a prophecy from the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 38 and 39, which is known as the Battle of Gog of Magog. Now, one of the reasons that we're coming here to tape is because of the recent activity that you've heard about the past couple months involving Russia's involvement in Syria, involving ISIS in Syria and Iraq, and the fact that even China has become involved in some of the military maneuvers taking place in this part of the world. You know, it's not the things that we read in the Bible that we can preach and expect to happen, but it's the unexpected things that suddenly occur that cause these different prophetic alignments to take place. I'm going to read Ezekiel 38, 1 through 6. Now, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I'm against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and lead you out with all your army horses and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, the great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all of his troops, and the house of Togarmah from the north and all of his troops, many people with you. The battle, which is known as the Battle of Gog of Magog, is believed by three major religions. It is accepted as a belief by the devout Jewish people who believe the Old Testament prophets. It's accepted by evangelical Christians that believe it's a battle that's not yet happened. And believe this or not, there is a teaching among Muslims concerning Gog of Magog. But their beliefs on who Gog of Magog is and how it relates to the time of the end differ a little bit. Now, among the devout Jews, if you read what they teach, and I'm talking about not all of them, but certain rabbis, rabbinical teaching, they believe that there will be a Mashiach ben Yosef, a Messiah son of Joseph, who will arise at the end of days. And then there will be a Islamic coalition of armies that will attack Israel. And this Jewish Messiah will be killed, but will have spared Israel from annihilation, and Israel will defeat her enemies. Among the Christians, it is believed that Gog of Magog is an enemy of the north that forms, again, a coalition of nations that we can now read in the Bible are Islamic nations that are enemies of Israel, and they will come on the mountains of Israel. And I'll just say this ahead of time, one of the areas they're going to come to is the area we're at now, which is called the Golan Heights. Now, the Islamic belief is a little bit different because they called in early Islam the gates of Gog of Magog was a certain area. And I wrote a note down here. They believe that that barrier that's holding back this army will be opened at the last days. In fact, later on in Islam, they considered the Turks part of the Gog of Magog battle, and they also considered the Mongols a part of the Gog of Magog battle. And so there's a lot of tradition related to this type of thing. Now, having said that, there are also what I call non-biblical sources that try to identify the concept or the belief of Gog of Magog. I'm going to give you some of these. There is a book of Jubilees and a book of Enoch, and these are not books that are placed in our Bible, but these are books that were known in the time of right before the birth of Christ, a century or two before the birth of Christ. a century or two after the birth of Christ. Some of these were noted. The book of Enoch, for example, was something that was noted among some early fathers. Now look at this. In the book of Jubilees, there's 3 references to the land of Gog of Magog, and it's the region of the land of Japheth's borders. Shem, Ham, and Japheth, one of the sons of Noah, the borders that he took over was considered to be the land of Gog of Magog. There's a book called the Book of Enoch, and it says that when God stirred up the Medes and Parthians to attack Jerusalem, that was a part of the battle of Gog of Magog. And then we find that Josephus talks about the Scythians and those riding upon horses that lived in the northern mountains. He connected them to the Gog of Magog. And then among the early fathers, they identified Gog and Magog with the Roman emperors. And in the 9th and 10th century, we're talking about AD, Gog and Magog was identified with the Turkish people called the Khazars. Now, I want to show you something here, because this is a question that comes in quite often on the Manifest telecast, where people will say to me, they'll say, Perry, in the battle of Gog and Magog, do you not believe that that battle is something that's going to happen at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ? Now, why do they say that? Because in the book of Revelation, in chapter 20, when Satan is loosed from the 1,000 years from out of that pit, the Bible says that he goes forth to deceive the nation, and he raises up Gog of Magog and the nations. Now, this is crazy. I mean, how can you, after 1,000 years of Jesus being on earth, get a group of people who attack Jerusalem? It doesn't even make sense. And that shows you the power of the enemy. So the battle, since Gog of Magog is mentioned in the book of Revelation, some people say Ezekiel 38 and 39 is going to happen at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. So how do you differ with that, Perry? How do you say that Ezekiel 38 and 39 is an end-time battle, and then over here you go into the book of Revelation and you say that battle happens at the end of the 1,000-year reign? Is there just one battle that Ezekiel saw and John saw, or are they 2 different battles? And the answer is there are 2. Now, I'm going to read something here, and this will come up on the screen. I'm going to talk about the Ezekiel war of chapter 38, and I'm going to talk about the war of Revelation 27 through 9, both who mention Gog of Magog. Watch this. The Ezekiel war is in the latter days, but the war of Revelation is at the end of the 1,000-year reign. The war of Ezekiel happens at the area called Bashan, or the Golden Heights, and a place called the Valley of the Passengers. The war of Revelation 20 happens strictly in the city of Jerusalem. The Ezekiel 38 war, the enemies of Israel are defeated supernaturally by hail and by an earthquake. The book of Revelation war, they are defeated by Christ himself. There's no supernatural element of earthquake or hail there. It's Christ himself who defeats the enemy. Then, the Ezekiel war, you see this on the screen, happens when Israel is regathered from the nations, and the end of the millennial war happens when the saints are ruling the world. Now, this is real important. The first one is Israel's ingathering, but the latter one is when the saints are on earth ruling with Jesus from Jerusalem. The Ezekiel war involves Islamic nations. You've got Ethiopia, you've got Persia, you've got Libya, you've got Togarmah. The one that happens later in the book of Revelation, it says all nations rise up to attack Jerusalem. Again, it makes no sense. Jesus has been on earth 1,000 years. Satan has been bound. And when Satan is loosed, how can he deceive? It's not us being deceived. It's those nations of people who have survived and repopulated the earth and survived and repopulated the earth, all right? So this is the only explanation that I can give you concerning why there is a Gog of Magog in Ezekiel, which probably could happen in the next 5 to 10 years easily here in the land of Israel. And I'm not putting a date on, I'm just saying the way the alignment's happening, it could. And then there's a Gog of Magog at the end of the millennium. There's only one way to explain this, and here's how you explain it. If you look at Gog of Magog, he's called the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. The word chief prince is a key word there because Michael is called the chief angel or the archangel of the nation of Israel, meaning he is an angelic being that protects the nation of Israel. The word prince is in the book of Daniel, where it talks about Daniel chapter 10, it mentions 2 demonic spirits, and one is called the prince of Grecia, and there's another one called the prince of the kingdom of Persia. Now, when it talks about in Daniel, Michael being the archangel and is the prince of Israel, that same word is used for prince, talking about the prince of Persia and the prince of Grecia. Now, the prince of Persia and Grecia in Daniel 10 were not human men. They are principality demons. You can't see them. They're atmospheric spirits, according to Ephesians 6, that rule over nations and providences. Now, here's what I want to tell you. And I want to go back to my notes because I want to share some things with you from my notes. Gog, G-O-G, as it's spelled in the King James translation, Gog is mentioned 9 times in Ezekiel 38 and 39. So whoever Gog is a very important person. The name is mysterious and only used 1 time in the Old Testament outside of Ezekiel. It's 1 Chronicles chapter 5 and verse 4. The sons of Shimei, his son Gog, G-O-G, same spelling, his son, Shimei, his son. So if you look at, for example, the Old Testament is written in Hebrew, with the exception of portions of Daniel and, let's see, the book of Daniel and Ezra, portions of that are written in Aramaic. But if you look at the Septuagint, and the Septuagint, if you've never heard that term, is where the Old Testament, which is in Hebrew, was translated into the Greek language. And that was one of the translations that was actually used back in the time when Jesus was on earth, the Septuagint translation. The Septuagint translates Agog, A-G-A-G. Now, there is a king in the Old Testament named Agog, but it translates his name as Gog, G-O-G. Because it's really weird that in the book of Ezekiel, when he mentions Gog, he says, is not Gog the one that the prophets of old spoke about? So this Agog was a king of the Amalekites. And as the king of Amalek, Amalek was Israel's first enemy when they came out of the promised land and attacked them from behind. And if you'll remember, this goes into history. If you'll study history, Haman in the book of Esther was a descendant of King Agag. And it was Haman who tried to wipe out all the Jewish people. Now, the reason I'm giving you these names is to tell you that there's an ancient Sumerian word. Sumerian language goes back 5,500 years. And in this ancient Sumerian word, there is a word called Gog, G-U-G. And that word Gog actually means darkness. It means darkness. Now, here's what I believe about this Gog, this prince of Meshech and Tubal. I believe that Gog is a demon. It's not a man. Although there are men in Europe, perhaps Romania, I know a man named Lazar Gog. There are people in Russia who have the name Gog, and it could be a man that comes in the future with that name. But because it appears in Ezekiel and 1,000 years later appears in Revelation, here's what it is. When Satan is bound for the 1,000 years in the bottomless pit, and then all the demonic powers are bound with him, that's how you can have peace on earth for the 1,000 years, because there's no demonic activity happening on earth at all. But then, when Satan is loosed from the abyss, because that word bottomless pit in the King James translation, especially in Revelation 9, it's called the abyssos in Greek, and it's a compartment underneath the earth where fallen angels are. When Satan is loosed at the end of the 1,000 years, what will happen is, he then has the spirits with him who are the king spirits that are also going to be released from that bottomless pit. And so one of the spirits is Gog, and I can tell you where he rules. Is everybody ready for this? There is no question, reading Ezekiel, he rules from the north country. He rules from the north country, the country north of Israel. Now check this out. Meshech and Tubal, a lot of people say, well, that's Moscow and it's this and that and the other. If you go to Ezekiel, I'm going to abbreviate this because this can get very complicated historically. If you go to the listing of Ezekiel 38, you've got Libya, we know where that's at. You've got Ethiopia attacking Israel, you know where that's at. You've got Persia, which is Iran, we know where that's at. We know who the Iranians are. But if you keep going into Togarmah, it also says, and the north quarters. And here's the bottom line. The area of Turkey is a part of the ancient territory Ezekiel is talking about. And the southern Russian states, 5 of them that are all Islamic, that's the area that he's talking about. And if you look at a map and you find Jerusalem, you'll discover that Moscow, which is the capital of Russia, is directly north. So When you go south of Moscow and you come into the southern Russian states and you come into Turkey, all of this territory is the territory of Gog, of Magog, Meshech, and Tubal. And I believe that, if I can say it this way, that if you look historically at the northern areas above Israel, there has been a lot of darkness, and I'm not talking about natural darkness and no sunlight. I'm talking about spiritual darkness that has ruled from that part of the world. You know, back in the days when there was a lot of communism in the world, it was a belief that there was no God. It was a belief against God. It was a belief against faith. And so what happened was it darkened the minds of men and women. It darkened their hearts. And so what we have to look at when we talk about the battle of Gog of Magog is to understand that Gog may be a principality spirit that is directly under Satan and under his control, that when Satan is bound at the beginning of Christ's rule on earth, Gog is bound with him. Then Satan is loosed and he takes those same spirits that attacked Israel in the last days, that helped bring about the tribulation, that, you know, the time of the coming of the Lord, all that was taking place, and he brings them back to one location. He brings them back to the city of Jerusalem for this purpose, to attack the camp of the saints. Now, Satan's just stupid. I mean, how dumb can you be? I mean, you really think that after you couldn't overthrow God in heaven, and you really think that after Jesus whipped you, and the blood of Christ defeated you, and you think that when God sends one angel and binds you for 1,000 years, you really think that after being down there in the pit for 1,000 years, you're going to come back and take everything over? Hello, somebody. How crazy can you be? And what's going to happen is God, Christ, is going to just speak from his mouth, and fire is going to come on all of those nations that try to come up against the city of Jerusalem. And then, and there's a real mystery here, and maybe, boy, I got a lot more to share. I was going to talk about oil being found in the Bashan. I'll have to do part 2 of this somewhere during this trip, because I didn't get to cover half of what I was going to tell you. But let me talk to you about this, because this is sort of the flow, that after Gog of Magog reappears, and that spirit reappears in Revelation 20, at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ, and that spirit is defeated, there's a shifting, there's a transition that happens right at the end of the 1,000 years, in which the Bible then takes you to a great white throne judgment in heaven. Now, the great white throne judgment will be all of the people who never made it into the kingdom. Let's go back. It'll be Cain, if Cain died lost, all the way through all those Old Testament people that died lost. It'll be all the New Testament era people that died lost, all the people all the way up to the rapture that died lost, all the people in the tribulation that died lost. It'll be fallen angels, because the Bible says we'll judge the angels. It'll be Satan. And what happens is there's this big white throne judgment in heaven. Now, no one here who's living, who is in the first resurrection or is caught up at the rapture, will be at that judgment, because your judgment is the bema, where God rewards people for what they did for him. And if you had a good attitude and you gave and you loved God and you loved people, then that's the significance of it. You were able to receive a good reward or a good crown. So here's what I want to tell you, and that is very, very, very important, that if you are a part of this kingdom that we're talking about, you are going to see, now this is going to be amazing, you're going to see at the great white throne judgment, angels judged, Satan judged, fallen angels judged. You know, and I'm just thinking of some people. It's going to be very interesting for the woman who took Bible reading and prayer out of school, named Madeline Murray O'Hare, who said there was no God. It's going to be real interesting when she has to look at him. And the damage that one woman did. And that is the judgment that people who in the tribulation received Christ, people that died martyrs, let's go back. People during the 1,000-year reign who received Christ, who died for him, will have to be resurrected and judged at the great white throne judgment. And so when this is over, the Bible says then there's a new heaven and a new earth. Now, if we go back to Josephus, he talks about an ancient prophecy that Adam said the world will be destroyed one time by water and another time by fire. The water has already happened in the flood of Noah. The fire will happen according to what Peter wrote, that the earth will be renovated by fire. And at the end of the 1,000 years, God will set everything on fire and recreate a brand new heaven and a brand new earth. It really is more like a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. Then the new Jerusalem will come down from God out of heaven onto a brand new earth. And one of the misnomers that we have as Christians is we're going to spend forever in heaven. No, we're not. You're going to go to heaven for the judgment, go to heaven for the marriage supper of the Lamb, return to earth. Then all of us will go to the white throne judgment to be spectators, I guess you could say there. And then God recreates everything, and then we come back and we absolutely live on a new planet and a new earth for eternity. And that's where the new Jerusalem will be, and the Lamb will forever be among us. So it's going to end the way it began in the garden with God walking with man. Now, I'm supposed to be preaching on, I don't even know what the subject was. I got so carried away. The alignment of the Gog and Magog coalition, and I've got to continue part 2. So next week on Manifest, I will bring up part 2, in which I'm going to talk about what brings Gog in, Russia's involvement in Syria, and oil discovery in Israel, and how all of this is coming together. Now, we're here with our partners. Let's give the Lord a big praise, somebody. We're here with our partners, and this is their final full day tour, and then we're going to tour tomorrow all the way up to the ocean, the water, and then we're going to send them away. And I stay for the next group coming in, but we love them, we appreciate them, and want them to know that. All of our partners, thank you for supporting our ministry. And I'll be back in a moment with a brand new offer that we're offering from this new series that's being taught here in Israel. Let's give the Lord one more hand of praise, please. I'm in my private office at Voice of Evangelism, where I spent several years writing, intensive research and writing, going through literally tens of thousands of outlines and sermons that I had preached over the years, because I wanted to leave a legacy with men and women and young people. I knew that if those notes remained in cabinets and files and just in this building, who knows what would have happened to them. So I took the best of those notes and compiled them into something I'm ready to share with you right now. It's the Perry Stone Prophetic Hebraic New Testament. This is a 300,000 word commentary and a 1611 King James New Testament. We have a beautiful, it's actually a chestnut color, imitation leather cover. We have the best quality paper. There's 3 qualities of paper in a Bible. We use the best quality paper available. We also used 2 colors. We have a beautiful teal green and also black for the Bible text and much of the writing. And what we did was we have the King James translation of the Bible, the 1611, and then at the bottom we have the commentary on every verse in the Bible. Sometimes the verses are compacted together in a group, sometimes they're individual. And we also have at the end of every book of the New Testament what's called an in-depth. And here's the in-depth of 1 Thessalonians. I mean, it's just loaded. So it deals with Hebraic truth, it deals with prophetic information, and I'm going to tell you what you're going to really love. You're going to love the boxes and the commentary in the book of Revelation. And so here's what I need you to do. We have 7 major outreaches. I need you to help me this year. And if you will support the ministry with a donation of $95 or more, you can request the brand new Perry Stone Hebraic Prophetic New Testament. It is full of 300,000 word commentary, personal commentary, Greek word studies, powerful information. You will come to a knowledge of the New Testament like you never have before. The offer number is BK018, BK018 for $95 or more. You can call 1-888-21-BREAD or send a check and request the Bible at Perry Stone, P.O. Box 3595, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320, or go online at perrystone.org. Now, I only have printed 75,000 copies of this Bible, so it's first come, first serve. We hope to hear from you, and I trust that you will enjoy the 300,000 word commentary in this brand new New Testament. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we come to the conclusion of our offer on television for the New Testament commentary, the King James Bible with the commentary of 300,000 words. Now, let me say something. This was printed in the United States of America. on the highest quality paper, the best covers, etc. And so has maps in the back and just a lot of different things. And so if you've not ordered it, this is the time to do it. I implore you, get this. I have worked years and years on this commentary personally. I did not have ghostwriters. I didn't have people working for me. I wanted it to be from the notes the Holy Spirit gave me through years and years of study. Having said that, I want to share something with you very quickly. We never advertise this on the program. We only talk about it occasionally in meetings where we travel. We have a very detailed partnership in our ministry called Partner Strike Force. Partner Strike Force members enjoy the following: a live Facebook feed that only partners can access, a 60-second every morning, 1-minute nugget of the day. You come on and you're shaving or you're brushing your teeth, you hit your phone, and there I am talking to you for 60 seconds on a nugget God has given me for that day. Then we have a devotional, a daily devotional on the Partner Strike Force page. And then we have articles by my wife, prophecy updates, and special sermons on the Partners page. So we believe that people who partner with us at the Strike Force level, that we want to minister back to you every single day or throughout the week with resources and information that'll be a blessing. We have monthly giveaways where we give away product to somebody once a month. We also have questions and answers. You send them in, we cut them up. I'll randomly draw them on Facebook Live and read that question, tell your name, and answer that question. Again, this is only available to partners. And so you can partner with us by contacting our office. There'll be information on the screen there, and say, I want information about the Partner Strike Force. This is the level that we're talking about. And let me say the reason for this is because without individuals who help us, we can't keep Manifest on the air worldwide. Without people helping us, we can't continue to build on our property the great things that God is doing for this generation. We just had thousands and thousands of young people come to OCI for what was called Warrior Fest. What a move of God that was. And I want you to know that the building that's there would have been impossible without the love gifts of God's people. Now, God has opened up some doors to us that we don't talk about on television. We sort of pray about them and see, should we walk through those at this time? But it's going to take thousands of you, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of you, to help me do everything God has told us. We're getting ready to launch ISO, an International School of the Word, International Bible School, which is going to be an accredited school. Now, not just some average accreditation, but an official accreditation. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot's going on. You can help me. I'm hoping to hear from you this week through the Voice of Evangelism Ministries. God bless you and keep you till next week.
Perry Stone invites you to join him April 27th through 30th at Omega Center International in Cleveland, Tennessee for the 2017 Prophetic Summit. Come hear prophetic insight from Perry Stone, Jonathan Kahn, Bill Cloud, Joel Richardson, and Dwayne Miller as they discuss current events unfolding across the globe and other inside information in our closed-door session. For more information, go to perrystone.org. Don't miss the biggest prophecy conference of the year at the 2017 Prophetic Summit. We'll see you there.
Perry Stone invites you to join him for his 2017 Israel Tour. The dates are November 20th through the 29th with an optional visit to Petra in the country of Jordan. Call 1-888-321-3629 or visit perrystone.org for more information and how to register. Seating is limited, so call today.